And today's sponsor is freedomwear.org. Freedomwear.org is having a limited time special on their Don't Tread on Me t-shirts. These are extremely high quality Gideon 5.3 ounce 100% cotton pre-shrunk t-shirts. These are the exact same shirts the military has used for basic training, so you know they're high quality shirts, available for small all the way up to 3X in classic gold, military green, and desert brown. Only $15 a shirt, or 2 for $25. 3 for only $33, and shipping is free. This is an amazing deal, so click on the link right now to place your order for freedomwear.org. And welcome to the Women on the Wall radio show. We are excited to have you here today. And my co-host, Rebecca Forrest, is not going to be on this segment. She'll be calling in later. There was a very important press conference down in Austin, and Rebecca is there listening to the press conference. There's grassroots leaders from across the state of Texas that have put together a border security plan, and they are ready to hold our elected officials accountable for not protecting our borders. And in the same time, there is a Twitter rally going on, being led by Women on the Wall and Lisa Benson, National Security Matters Radio. And that Twitter rally is going on today from 9 to 5, and folks will be lobbying their elected officials to protect America now. Protect America now. And you know, here on Women on the Wall, we really do focus on those three issues: immigration, national security, and of course, education. And so it is my huge honor and pleasure to introduce to the show a new hero of mine, a mom who has been doing an immense amount of research and really connecting the dots on what's going on in education today in our country. And she's doing that by looking back what's gone on in the past in education and in our history. And so she's written an incredible book, which I am using personally as a tool to understand and know how to go into my local school district, into my children's elementary, middle school, and high school, and know the kinds of questions to ask. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to the show Robin Eubanks, who's written the book Credentialed to Destroy: How and Why Education Became a Weapon. Good morning, Robin. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you. And we were excited to have you on our Women on the Wall conference call last night, and it was a great call, and I think people are starting to connect the dots. And I want to give you an opportunity, like we did last night, let you introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about who you are, your background, and what prompted you to write this book.
Again, I'm a mother of, I have 3 children, most of whom are grown now, and was general counsel of a publicly held healthcare company. I'm a lawyer. And in the years I was general counsel of a healthcare company, I was picking up on things that were going on in education, because a lot of the same drivers were going on in education and in healthcare. It wasn't until later that I put it all together that I was dealing with the Clinton healthcare reforms during the 90s as general counsel, but going on the same track for what we all remember as outcomes-based education, and which is very much analogous to what's going on as known as Common Core now. Basically, everything that created problems in the 90s, they've changed the sales pitch, they've broken it up, and are arguing it state-led instead of trying to do it all out of Congress and federal agencies. But it's the same template. So when I was a stay-at-home mom and hearing explanations, I kind of picked up that it was a plausible explanation, but it just didn't ring true. And so I would do a little bit of research, and I would find something that looked bad, and I would ask a perfectly legitimate, respectful question and just get this, awful response. And I didn't really understand because I didn't think I had done anything wrong. It was respectful, and so it's like I started really looking into education, and the more I researched it, the more information that I got, the more alarming it was. And as the kids got older, I told my husband, I'd like to go back to work, and nobody seems to appreciate this area, and I think I would like to make this kind of my future, is really get to know what's going on in education the way I once understood healthcare. And when I would explain what was going on to elected officials, parents, etc., they would respond with, everybody should know what you just explained to me. And I said, that would require me to write a book, and I don't even like to raise my hand in class. Are you kidding? And so that one thing kind of led to another, and then the next thing I knew, I was sitting down to write a book, and between picking up my kids for carpool, and I learned to set the timer on the oven, so I didn't forget to pick up my youngest child from middle school because I was in my head writing this book. So I would not know what I know if I hadn't also been a parent. I'm in a school that's an IB school, International Baccalaureate. Wouldn't know a lot of things if I wasn't in IB school picking up on, that doesn't make sense. I'm in the Atlanta area, which is really pushing what's called regional equity hard, like a lot of your cities in Texas as well. Dallas, Houston are pretty good examples of that. And so without really meaning to, just by being in the room, I've been able to connect a lot of the dots. So it's very factual oriented. It's discussing things people had not developed before, but it's also it's not everything I know, but it's intended to basically be used in the way that you're using it, to give parents a heads up. This is how it all ties together. This is what it's really aimed at, so that when, what happens in education reform is when it becomes controversial, it doesn't go away. It simply changes its name, and they quit talking about it, and maybe it'll get a different group pushing it. But if you understand what it looks like regardless of its name, you can always find it when it comes back, and you can appreciate that what's being sold in your school as an anti-bullying campaign actually has far deeper psychological purposes. And isn't it interesting to know that every school system in the Western world is carrying on a similar anti-bullying campaign right now? No kidding.
That is what is so interesting, is when you start connecting the dots and you look at the strategies and tactics of implementation, whether it's Common Core of how they put it into 45 states across the country without anyone asking questions, and it was there, to C-Scope that was put into 875 school districts across the nation, across the state, and nobody knew about it, and bam, it was there. And now you've got AP, that new AP US history, that it's all the same philosophy of education, and there is a blueprint out there, and there are people who are orchestrating this. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about APUSH last night, and a way to tie APUSH into what I know is going on in Texas in your K through 12 system, that's the same concept laid philosophy is, even though you don't have Common Core, you have got two individuals by the name of Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe, who created something called Understanding by Design. And understanding by design is the same idea of you teach the concept, and it's that concept that then guides the student's perception and guides it becomes part of their belief system. So instead of teaching facts, you're trying to create kind of beliefs ground up in emotions about what the world's really like, what people are really like, and that's what's coming into the classroom. So understanding by design, it's also called, in some school systems, backward mapping. In other words, this is the learning objective, and they will usually use the term objective. Sometimes they'll use outcome or occasionally competency. But it's this quality that we would like to have in the student as a result of what goes on in the classroom. And then how do we get the student there? That's where you get the backward mapping. And the understanding is it's not rational understanding. It's not grounded in facts. It's just the understanding that the student is to have about how the world works or how they see themselves or how they see other people, so that it becomes influential on how they'll act in the future. It always comes down to behavior. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is very much the same principles that were involved in what was called values clarification before, what was then called outcomes-based education. There's a continuous trajectory of these ideas, and all they do is get a name change. But they always have the same purpose. And once you understand that, you can protect your children. And that's what I'm hearing from readers around the country, is that as the school year has started, that they're able to pick up on things they would not be aware of and protect their child. If they can't change what's going on in the classroom yet, they at least can talk to their own child and let the child have a sense of humor about it, or let the child know, if if what's going on in the classroom seems to be about changing how you perceive things, why don't you tell me about it that night at dinner? I don't want to find out about it later. So that if you understand this is what's going on in the classroom, you can undo a lot of the intended damage, and you can joke about it with the kids so that they don't feel so frustrated and caught up between the family and what's going on in school that's trying to change them away from the personality and the values and the beliefs that they came to school with.
Well, and it's interesting because when you look at a lot of these teachers, educators, some administrators that are fairly new to education, they have bought into this hook, line, and sinker. I have a very, very, very close friend from college, a roommate, who I talked about on the conference call last night, who has described herself to me as a change agent. And she is a, wonderful mother, a strong Christian woman. She goes to church, and she's not someone that you would connect to someone trying to harm your child. She has all the right intentions, but she's bought into this through professional development. And one of the points that you made last night that I think was so important is that a lot of these people don't understand the big picture. They're giving the talking points, one, because their job is on the line, and two, because they don't understand what's actually happening in the big world. They have the right intention, and so part of our job as protecting our children and going into their schools is to understand where the people that we're talking to, where they're at in the system, if you will. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's frequently why I am invited to meetings and things now, because they are always told a plausible explanation. And most people take the explanations that they're given and just assume that people are acting in good faith. I've been at this story way too long to believe that, and practiced law way too long to accept that everybody has good intentions, especially when you in education, we have consciously created these conflicts of interest, and it's taxpayer money, and teachers and administrators and consultants are being led to believe that they can make massive amounts of money. A lot of these consultants are charging like $4,000 a day for training, and a social worker charging $2,500 a day for doing school governance training. That's so many times what an independent market would pay them for their time, that they're going to push whatever it takes to keep getting those contracts. In most states, you get to retire off your last 3 years of income. Those averages. So if pushing this stuff is what gets you promoted and into the administrative office and into a six-figure income quickly, and that's what you get to retire off. You're talking about people for pushing this that are looking at six-figure incomes for the rest of their lives, and that's a lot of incentive. People develop businesses and sell them and don't get to hold on to the kind of money that these pensions being promised are going to produce over time. So there's a tremendous amount of selling going on to push these ideas, and threatening of teachers and telling administrators there will be no more promotions for you. You will not get the lucrative gigs in retirement that allow you to make the $3,000-$4,000 a day. You won't get to go from taking your retirement with the local school district and then immediately go to work at the state or at a RESA and go for the double retirement. All of these things are what's going on that are part of what causes people, even people who are well-intentioned, to not want to look into the background of the ideas. They want to believe it's going to work. They want to believe. Sometimes I joke about the fact that, that this is like selling rides on a unicorn. You can really want to sell rides on a unicorn, but there aren't any unicorns. So your intentions to sell those rides aren't going to create unicorns. Well, a lot of the ideas pushing in education, when you get down to what's involved, they won't work. If I'm in the room, though, and I hear what somebody's advocating for, I'll hear right through the plausible excuse that they heard and realize whose theory it is. And so I'll immediately recognize that they're pushing Abraham Maslow's humanist psychology in the classroom, or they're pushing John Dewey's ideas, or whoever. And one of the things I try to point out to people, no matter how well-intentioned you are, the intentions of whoever created that theory come with the theory, even if you're not aware of them. And that's always something to keep in mind, because a lot of the administrators and a lot of the teachers are pushing ideas that they have no idea where they actually originated and what they were really intended to do. So part of our job and part of the benefit of having read that book is you can say, I know where this comes from. Are you aware? And do it in a manner that's not defensive. But there's no dispute about these facts. There's no dispute about what's intended. There's no dispute about what the history of these ideas are. So it's getting the information in the hands of parents and taxpayers and a lot of teachers. I have a lot of teachers who are readers. I've got some education school professors who are readers who are just horrified by what's being pushed in our schools of education now. And so it's my job is to tie it all together, make it factual, to create the analogies that people can relate to, and try to keep my sense of humor about it. It is what it is. I didn't make the story political. I'm very factual about relating the political aspects of the story, and that's why I tend to have kind of a snarky sense of humor about it, because it's not necessarily, you don't want the story to be true, but it is true, and the only way to diffuse it is to say, this is the intention, this is not okay, it won't work, and we might as well acknowledge on the front end that it won't work. It's our kids, it's
Right.
our country, and this is not what we should be doing.
Well, and really that's what connected me to you is by asking questions and being led to you and to your book and to your and I want to. So, and I'll mention it again at the end of the broadcast, but you have a website as well, a blog, invisiblesurfscholar.com, and you do a lot of writing and interaction with the people that have read your book and the people that are taking the tools, are you using your book as a tool to go in and fight the good fight for our kids. And I want to talk a little bit about, this digital age that we're in, and we're seeing it in all over Texas, and
Right.
specifically in my children's school district. They're now buying iPads for all the 3rd and 4th graders. For all the at the intermediate school, they're purchasing Chromebooks, and which I'm horrified about. One, because of the data collection aspect of it, but two, because where have any of these tools or apps or things that these teachers have access to, one, where have any of them been proven successful, piloted and proven successful to teach reading, writing, math, history, those knowledge-based foundation, that kind of an education? Where has any of this been proven? And what we're finding out is that it hasn't, but that's not the intention anyway, as you've pointed out. And I want to read something that you sent to me. It said, what is going on now in K-12 is tied to creating a nexus among government, research universities, and big business. It's mostly off people's radar, but not politicians. They know what's going on in K through 12. That what's going on in K through 12 cannot remain focused on subject matter content, and meanwhile be generic workforce skills and personality amendable prep. And why this hit me, and we'll talk about what model this is. I had a meeting, several grassroots leaders and myself had a meeting with Governor Rick Perry's education policy team. And, they're real big that we did not pass, that we don't have Common Core in Texas. But what his policy advisor wanted me to agree to was that Common Core was completely separate from 21st century learning. And I kept saying, no, it's the same philosophy. And when you look at someone like Governor Perry, who on one side can politically say, oh, we're against the Common Core, but pass and be pushing a workforce development model of education. There's a data collection center going on, being built at Texas A&M University. The dot, kind of like you said, I'm going, no, that doesn't fly. The dots don't connect. We know better. Am I onto something? Are they putting in, and say it for me, the Turchenko model? Is that what this is?
Oh, the Turchenko, yeah. Yes, it is. It is the Turchenko model. And for your listeners, the Turchenko was a paper that was written in the Soviet Union in 1975 that was immediately translated into English and published in the U.S. And it is very interested in digital learning. I lay it out in the book, quoting from the paper, but I also pointed out that the paper was supposed to be about what was going to happen in Russia. But there are numerous places in that paper that make no sense about Russia. That's just not how Russia worked. But they only make sense if the whole purpose of the Turchenko paper was to lay out the template of how we wanted the economy to work in the West going forward and how digital learning taps into that. People who understand, I could use digital learning to deliver a lecture. That's not what's intended for digital learning, though. And it is referred to in books I have that are professors that are involved in this as the Trojan horse. It is the way to shift the classroom away from academics and subject matter knowledge, because most people don't appreciate that a computer is inherently a tool. So when you make school about using a computer, you've just made school vocational. That's the first point. The second point about digital learning is that digital learning is a visual system. It's not like print. When you read a book, you're using what are called symbol systems. One of the things that ignited the world as we know it and take for granted was for the use of symbol systems to become widespread throughout the population. What it did to the human mind is it was just like igniting it. And so to a certain extent, I've called digital learning an attempt to uninvent the printing press, because the mass literacy that we take for granted gets undone in a world where you don't use symbol systems anymore, and it's just the computer delivering visual images. The third thing is your body doesn't really separate the physical reality it lives in from virtual reality. So you get the computer programmer, and there was an IST, International Society for Technology and Education. They had their conference in Texas last year, had it in Atlanta this year. Last year, one of the speakers at it said, you know, the great thing about game-based learning in the classroom and these programs is we get to create the visual images that the student will learn to accept and take for granted. So we get to hype their emotions. We get to make the physical world work the way that we want them to perceive that it works, so that they become alarmed about the environment, for example. And so that they believe that the ice caps are melting and the polar bears are all going to drown. It's hard to do that in the real world, but it's very easy to hype all that in the visual world. So apart from the data gathering, which we've talked about and is very alarming, because if you ask an open-ended question, which is what they favor, how I answer that question tells whoever it is, and again, they don't need to know who I am. Personal characteristics will do just fine. Don't need personally identifiable information. It tells them what my values are. It tells them what my belief system is. It tells them what I know. It tells them how my mind works. It tells them what concepts I tend to apply when there is no correct answer. They know me very, very well. They know me better than I know myself. And that's the kind of information that the iPads are gathering. And the reason they don't care about personally identifiable is that's not what big data is about. Big data cares about what neighborhood you live in, are your parents educated, and what correlates with various characteristics, and especially what kind of curriculum, what kind of classroom activities, what kind of game-based learning that you were immersed in changed you, how long did it take, and how. And all of that information gets captured automatically by adaptive software in an iPad.
And really, that's it. Our kids are the guinea pigs, and they are, they're being led down the path. And
yeah, they are. I've looked at conference. I follow this stuff all over the world. When you get into the technology stuff, though, that part of UNESCO is still based over in Moscow. Always has been. And only about half of the psychological research that was carried on during the Soviet Union in this area involving technology and visualization and how you can change what people believe, only about half of it's ever been translated into English. When UNESCO has one of these technology conferences, about half the papers stay in Russian. So as much as I know about what's going on in terms of technology and education and what's desired, and it's a whole lot, I still don't know at least half of what's out there and which would control what's being attempted with technology, because I don't speak Russian, I don't read Russian, and most of the relevant psychological research on how to use technology to change what people believe and change what they value is still in Russian. But anybody doing this area that has access to somebody that speaks Russian has access to that research.
Wow. I tell you, every day, one, I wake up and I don't say, oh, I don't have anything to do today. And two, I learn a new piece of the puzzle that scares me in one sense and motivates me in the other sense because I'm a mom, which I know, that's for those of us who are moms who have been kind of taken down this journey of uncovering this. Our only agenda is our children. It's not a political agenda. It's not a political party. It's protecting our children and giving them the same opportunities of freedom and knowledge and education to live a happy, fulfilled, successful life. And so I tell you what, Robin, your book, I'm in the middle of it, and so I have a feeling that as I read more and uncover new things, if you will come back on this show, I would just really love the opportunity to continue the conversation and encourage people to really go out, purchase your book, and follow along on your blog and take action. Is there anything that you want to say before we close out the show, Robin?
No, everything I know now, everything I discuss on the blog, which is basically me reacting to what's going on, what's in my head, because I've basically researched the second book, which is much more global, much more technology-oriented. It's why perception is so important. It's all still grounded in what's in that book. And the readers on the blog, when they read the book, they're like, everything makes sense now. And I'm like, yeah, I can't go back and restate everything. I'm assuming everybody's read the book, and I know that's not true, but I have to keep going forward.
Right.
This is a coup. That's the best way to describe this. This is an invisible coup using our schools, using the taxing power of the government, its ability to incur debt, and it's all designed to, in its own words, to create a planned economy and society that is more collective than anything that has ever created prosperity. And I don't think of myself as governed. Anyone who knows me doesn't think I would be very, very good at being governed. And this assumption involves that legislators and school board members and appointed boards have the right to dictate to citizens what they can be. And what they are supposed to be believing is unacceptable in a free society, and we have every right to talk about it. If I can tie it down, and I do tie it down, or I don't talk about it, it ought to be in the public domain, and it ought to be something that we can bring up with our school board members and teachers and principals. Do it respectfully, but this is fact. These are all matters of fact. And when somebody tries to do what they did to you and say there's not a connection between Common Core and 21st century learning, you'll know exactly what the connection is. And you can politely correct them and say, yes, they're connected. Here's the connection.
Right.
So a book is the only way to do it sometimes. And I talk to people. I have an ongoing dialogue every day from people all over the world on that blog. And we're gathering information, we're bringing things to each other's attention, and it's a tremendous network. So I encourage all your listeners to join in.
Wonderful.
It's going to be quite a school year. I can promise you that.
It is, and I just thank you for all your work, and I'm excited, and again, I encourage everyone, go out and get Credentialed to Destroy: How and Why Education Became a Weapon, and then go on Robin's blog, invisiblesurfscollar.com. Robin, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Bye. Bye-bye.